Hi everyone, EvisT here. I'm going to be giving you a tutorial today on the docking feature of Kerbal Space Program and looking a little bit about the MechJeb mod as well. So first of all, docking. Docking was introduced in 0.18 of the version of the game. It introduced a few new pods as well as these docking clamps which you can find under Utility. You have Clampatron Docking Port and Clampatron Junior. And there's also this shielded as well, which is basically the same as the Clampatron, but just looks a bit prettier. There is a stock space station core, which is what I'm using here, and I have a horrible rocket here, an absolutely horrible one. Those of you who know the game will be looking at this and laughing at me, but it's suitable for purpose, and that's all that matters. I'm not that interested in making a really nice pretty rocket. I just want to get this thing into orbit and get back home. So the important thing with docking is to make sure that you have these docking ports on any area where you're going to want to join two ships or space station parts, whatever, together. So in this case we have one at the base here just underneath the decoupler, another's on the side here, and another one on the top here. That's the stock one, but if you stick to the same sort of idea, if you're constructing a proper space station core for yourself, then you'll be absolutely fine. You then need, of course, to build a rocket to get your parts into orbit. That's a bit beyond the scope of this tutorial, though. We're going to look mainly at the docking itself, so you can find other tutorials online for that, and I may record one if the inclination takes me. So let's launch this and get it into orbit. Now this is where we cheat a little bit. A lot of what you do in Kerbal Space Program is very rewarding, but it's also very fiddly. I don't like having to put a rocket into orbit every time I want to launch a rocket, because I know how to put a rocket into orbit. I can get the rocket into orbit. It's not fun anymore. It's not a challenge anymore. MechJeb lets you automate processes like that. And it's also very important if you're constructing space stations, because it will allow you to actually get into an orbit close to your other parts without actually hitting them, or even just getting close. Doing that without MechJeb is possible, and I have done it, but it is a pain in the arse, and it is far more trouble than it's worth. So we're using MechJeb. You need to set the orbit altitude. I have a station already at 150 kilometers, so I'm putting this one at 200. Inclination 0. Launch to rendezvous is a function we'll be using later. That doesn't work if the inclination isn't 0. So keep it at 0 inclination. Auto stage and auto throttle is fine. You only need to be messing about with them if you've got a really fiddly rocket that requires you to manually control the throttle and separation. If you have, it's probably just a badly designed rocket anyway, and you shouldn't be flying it. Think of the poor Kerbals smeared across the landscape. Think of the grieving widows. Oh, a friend of mine playing there. I really should disable those overlays before I do these videos. Anyway, so you've put the information in there. You can have the ascent stats on and off. You can edit the launch path, but we don't want to be messing about with that. So just engage, and then off we go. You do, of course, need to manually trigger the first stage, as you always do with MechJeb. Okay, so we are now in a stable orbit around Kerbin, a nice equatorial orbit, just over 200 kilometers. That variance will be due to my own negligence and crappy design of my rocket. I've got my other station over there, Frontier Station. This one we will rename in a bit. Basically, we now have a few options. This is where we're going to be building our new station, so we basically just need to leave this one here. I would normally eject the fuel tank here, but I'm going to keep it because having fuel in orbit is a very useful thing. You can basically build a rocket, you only need to put enough fuel in it for it to reach the station. It can then refuel and have a shit ton of fuel for your extraterrestrial voyages. So I'm going to leave this one here, but before I do that I'm just going to level it out a little bit, make it nice and pretty, and engage the SAS system. So I could eject this final stage, and that would then free up a docking port there. I may eject this later on. The nice thing about this is because there's no docking port on the back here, there's just a bloody great big exhaust port. I could eject that later and free that up if I need it. and fuel, as I say, is useful, so there's no point in ejecting it just yet. Nice little Easter here. We've got Batman batteries. I always love that. Batman battery. You get it? Okay, so what next? We've got the first section in orbit, but we now need to get the second section in orbit. Easier said than done, right? Well, not if you're using MechJeb. First of all, you want to go to the Space Center. Do not end the flight. Space Center. Ending the flight will basically remove that thing from orbit. So you can see here we've got the core lifter modules. I'll just show you Frontier Station. Warning now, this is probably going to lag like a motherfucker. Yeah, there we go. So this is Frontier Station. This is my main space station. You can see you've got cores there, and another one there. I just use the stock one because it's fit for purpose. This up here is the habitation module. There's lots of crew space in there. This is the science section. You've got lots of scientific instruments on board that little module there. And at the bottom here is the refueling section, and there's the fuel line through there. So the idea is that rockets can dock here and be refueled from the fuel tanks here. And keeping this away from this means that if there is a cock-up, then odds are the rocket will only take this part out instead of taking this part out. And believe me, getting those orange fuel tanks into orbit and full is not fun. Well, it is fun, but only if you're a masochist. So if we go back to the Space Center again, and we're going to launch another copy of the same ship. I know you can launch directly from the launch pad, but I like doing it this way. Now, you don't need to launch exactly the same ship. You can launch any ship, because MechJeb, as we will see, will do all the calculations for you, but keeping the ships the same does help to keep everything predictable. So we do it exactly the same as before. We set the orbital altitude the same, 0 inclination, leave everything as is. However, now we use time launch to rendezvous. You can then choose a target. In this case, we're using Space Station Core Lifter there at 200 kilometers. And that's basically then it. You hit engage, and the MechJeb will warp time so that when you launch, your projected flight path will put you into orbit roughly next to whatever object you've selected. It's not 100% accurate. You wouldn't want it to be 100% accurate, because otherwise by the time the autopilot disengaged, there would be a god almighty mess, and odds are it wouldn't be being disengaged through being turned off, but through being destroyed. But again, you don't want to see my rocket on its horrible wobble all the way to the stars, so we're going to fast forward to the appropriate juncture. Okay, we have now completed our ascent, and as you can see, we are now within 4 kilometers of the originally launched module, which is good. If we had tried to do this launch manually using the orbital planner and our own eyeball, it would be a horrible failure. We would have to be messing about with getting the orbit exactly right, setting up the rendezvous points, and while that can be fun, after a while, after you've done it a few times, it just gets tedious. So, like I say, that's why I use MechJeb. But okay, we're within 3.8 kilometers, but we've still got a problem. We still need to get over there. Now, the first thing you want to do is select this as your target. You may have to look around for a little bit to find it. You may even have to access the map screen and set the item as your target on the map screen, but you just need it as your target, that's it. And you'll now see our relative velocity here. So if we watch this, 3.6, we've gone down from 4 point something, so we know that this is a positive velocity. We are in fact moving towards the target. That's one thing that the game is missing, is the ability to differentiate between a positive velocity and a negative velocity. But what we want to do is make sure we are heading directly towards our original. So what I do is use the Smart ASS, set it to RVEL minus, that means relative velocity minus. That means if you burn in this direction, you will reduce your relative velocity. So start the burn. So you just want to keep it very delicate, and engage the SAS as well, because as you can see, when your velocity starts to get low, your direction starts to wobble, and the smart ASS tries to compensate when there is no compensation to be had. So next up, target plus. In case you're not wondering, that means burning in this direction will burn you towards the target, or you are facing the target. So again, we swing round, and you see this purple marker on the nav ball is the target. Burn hard, and we get our direction of travel towards the target. Now, at this point, if you're impatient, you may feel tempted to burn again, or burn again and again, and get your velocity up quite high. No. Key to a successful docking is slow and patient. What we can, however, do is warp. But keep the warping low as well, no more than 10%, otherwise, because you'll notice that over time our relative velocity changes, because as we get closer, errors in accuracy compound. So we now want to decrease our relative velocity again and make corrections. And this is how you do it. You get close, you reduce your relative velocity, you correct using target plus, you then move in again, you correct using you kill your velocity, correct using target plus until you're within about 500 meters. So again, I burn here, and speed is now practically 0. Alright, I think I'm close enough, so if I start burning towards this now, odds are I'm going to hit it, or hit it with exhaust or something like that, and it's not going to be pleasant. And separating here also means that this engine will drift off harmlessly in another direction and won't hit my original structure. So target plus again, disable the SAS, otherwise it interferes with the smart ASS. And now you put the ship into docking mode. In docking mode, your RCS thrusters are basically keyed to the keys that are normally used to control your direction. So we engage RCS, and W basically acts as the accelerator. Shift and control, you can see, increase or reduce altitude. So we're navigating now almost exclusively by the nav ball. You want to keep your projected course directly on your target. So again, if we do that, you can see we're off course, we're now on course, correction slightly. And again, you may be tempted to just wrap the throttle up, but it's not a good idea. As you get better at the docking mechanics, you will be able to operate faster, and you'll have an idea of how far away you need to be for a safe deceleration. But because you're using RCS thrusters, which have a tiny amount of thrust, it's going to get very ugly very quickly if you're moving too fast to actually stop. So we're going to warp a bit. And again, it's far safer to warp than it is to speed up. But at the same time, warping itself can be dangerous. So make that call. So we're now within 100 meters. So first of all, let's get our velocity back on track. And now we want to kill our speed. Speed is now 0. Engage SAS, keep us on track. Okay, this is a trick you can use when your stations are still small, but it doesn't work so well when the stations are a bit bigger. First of all, you want to go to the space center. Again, don't hit end flight. Go to the tracking station. Select the first object you put into orbit. Wait for it to load. Now you need to find the other object. There it is. Select it as your target. And then use target plus. Disable SAS. This will point you directly at the previous ship. And in this case, it points your docking port directly at the previous ship as well. So if we choose control from here, we can put it there. Or if we wanted to use the other docking port, let's just pretend, nope, completely obscured by other systems. Okay, fair enough. Actually, let's use one of these. So if we control from here, then hit target plus. Ah yes, it goes into a death spin. We want target parallel, don't we, for that one? Kill rotation, that's another useful function. First of all, we need to make sure that we are controlling from something on the axis again. Sorry about that, that's something I completely forgot about. If you wanted to use these, you would choose target parallel, and that would present the appropriate ports that you wanted to connect to. So, you know, just for a laugh, we're going to actually try and yeah, parallel, because I need to point this one at the other one first if I'm doing it that way. One of your ships needs to be pointed at the direct target. Sorry, this isn't a particularly good tutorial at this point. We'll keep it simple. Target plus, we can point this directly at that at our other ship. Basically, target plus so you've got one of your docking ports aligned. You can then engage the SAS, because MechJeb does not control ships that you are not currently controlling. So if we left this right now without SAS, it would start drifting. So put the parking brake on, and then again Space Center, and the new module. So reselect this as your target, and now target plus. Disengage the SAS. Those two docking ports are now perfectly aligned. If we just started to jet forward here, put it into docking mode, and then correct the velocity. Again, think of yourself as just controlling this little yellow marker. You just want to keep that on par. Left and right on your keyboard are left and right on this. Shift and control are your altitude, and W and S are your targets. They're basically now perfectly aligned, but if we then want to select the docking port that we want to dock with and hit set as target. That will now ensure that this ship stays perfectly aligned along its long axis to that docking port. So if we keep it going this way, very slowly. We're actually going too fast here, we need to kill some speed, but I'm being a bit reckless just to prove a point, as it were. Also want to rotate slightly because we don't want the solar panels to collide with each other. So that should do that. And now we want to kill some of our speed. When you're docking, you want to be moving about 0.4 meters is fairly good. As you kill your speed, remember to correct your course. I think we're coming in a slightly shallow angle here, so increase our altitude slightly. And again, that does account for the fact that MechJeb isn't controlling this other module. And nearly there. Kill speed a bit more. Slower is better. And we have connection. And that's it. That's our ship docked. And it's that simple. So now if we want, we can well, we should disengage SAS. SAS is currently screwing with these docked ships because these docking ports are very rubbery. So if we extend these solar panels, and you can see we have the makings of our first space station. Or alternatively, we could fire up the engine here and travel to some distant land far, far away. But we're not going to be doing that. Now, what if you are approaching on a completely wrong angle, or nightmare situation? You've got your ships are one of your ships, or one of your stations, if you will, you can't use SAS on it. You can't move it. There's too many of these connections. It rubber bands like crazy. You've got to do it manually. Well, we can deal with that as well. First of all, we need to undock, and if we will move away, engage RCS, RCS was not engaged. So as you can see here, our approach angle is completely screwed up. I'm just going to screw it up even more just for giggles. Okay, so I've moved the module away from the station, and now we're going to look at how to dock without the ability to use the SAS on the station you're docking with, or minimal use of Smart ASS on your own ship. The first thing you want to do is use a Smart ASS for Target Plus, as you do. But beyond that, that's all you really need it for. SAS doesn't really work on stations, as I've said, because of the rubber banding effect of the docking ports. So at some point you basically need to do all the work with one ship. You need to get all the angles lined up and everything. It's fairly straightforward though. So the first thing we want to do is same as before. Approach the station and do your best to just play keeping the retrograde line on your target. Now I'm going to choose a awkward one to go for. Let's try one of the side pods. See if I can select one from here. May need to get closer first. Yeah, I'm almost certainly going to need to get a bit closer. So this is a combination of eyeball work and using the nav ball. If you can use both at the same time, then basically you're made. It's not going to be too awkward for you. So just going to speed up a little bit. Unsafe velocities, but hey, what the hey. Where are we? Okay, now let's kill some speed. I'll use relative velocity here again just to finish off my speed now that I'm a bit closer. And we'll go for this side one here. Set as target, target plus, and just begin the docking approach. So again, use your prograde marker. Nicely set up. Always thought these docking controls are a bit backwards. The throttle should stay the same, and it should just be the attitude. The directional controls should just be the WASD keys. But that might be something they change in the next patch. Now that we're closer, we can select these a bit more easily. So I'm going to select this docking port because it is on completely the wrong angle, and it will illustrate how to do this. So we need to increase our altitude. And to do that, we first want to make sure that the ship is orientated. Orientating the ship to the horizon on the nav ball will save you a lot of hassle because you'll know exactly which direction does what. So now we want to go up, and up we go. Kill velocity a little bit as well. And as you can see, as using target plus and selecting our desired port as the target keeps our ship pointing at that target. Now the eyeball comes into knowing where to steer the ship, and the nav ball comes into keeping yourself on the perfect course once you're at the appropriate approach angle. So don't forget to keep yourself orientated as close to the horizon as possible. Increase that there, so we're moving towards the station a bit more. But as you can see, we're now getting very close to a good approach angle. So once you're at the suitable approach angle, relative velocity is your friend if you want to be very careful about it. If not, you can do what I usually do and just go straight forward, correcting your course as you go. But this is the safer option. So we're now at a good angle. So if we kill the course, go back to pointing at the target, and we're at about roughly the right angle for an approach. And this is all done without the aid of the other ship. So again, now we use the nav ball to get on the perfect heading. Fast forward a bit. And you see we're about lined up still actually. The angle is good. We're slightly high, so I'm just going to kill speed a bit and orientate to the equator again. So now I need to know that I need to move down slightly. So down go. Then increase speed again. Now the thing with this docking is you don't need to be dead on. The closer you are, the less the likelihood of a horrible catastrophe, but you don't need to be flawless. So you can see here that the angle is good but not perfect. In fact, I'm going to need to have to go left again, right again. No, in fact the angle is a lot worse than it looked, so easy to recover. Don't panic, just adjust. Again, adjust upwards, burn forwards, adjust left, adjust right. And this is where it gets a little bit annoying, because once you lose your orientation, it's much harder to figure out which way the controls are actually going to be going for you. So I know that I need to move towards the station again. You can use the SAS to stop your rotation, but if you do so, you're no longer pointing directly at your chosen target. So if I come in there, and now I know I need to move down slightly, up slightly, I can use that there. Oh, bloody thing's rotating away now as well. So I now know that I'm on target for one direction. Just need to come a bit in this way. Kill speed. Not the prettiest connection in the world, but any connection that you successfully make is a successful connection. It doesn't need to be pretty, it just needs to work. And there we go. That's docking. That's how to dock. That's how to get two modules close to each other in orbit, close enough to each other in orbit to dock. How to do a nice clean dock using MechJeb and SAS to ensure that your targets are all lined up. And the slightly messier option, and sometimes the only option, of doing it all manually with one ship. So get out there and get building stations. This is EvisT signing off.